It's strange, isn't it? We argue non-stop about boomers. We obsess over millennials. We dissect Gen Z like they're a brand new species under a microscope. But there's an entire generation in the middle that barely gets mentioned at all. Not celebrated, not blamed, not analyzed, almost invisible. This is Generation X, and their psychology might be the most misunderstood of any living generation. Who Gen X really is. Born roughly between 1965 and 1980. They're your older co-workers who never complain. Your parents, who seem emotionally distant but oddly capable. The people who helped build the internet and then quietly logged off. They don't post their breakfast. They don't overshare. They don't explain themselves. And here's why. The Latchkey generation. Generation X was the first true Latchkey generation. Picture this. It's 1978. You're 8 years old. You walk home from school to an empty house. No smartphones, no Ring cameras, no way for anyone to check if you're okay. You unlock the door yourself, make your own snack, do homework alone, and wait. A study in the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry found that by 1984, nearly 7 million children ages 5 to 13 were regularly unsupervised after school. That's not a phase. That's a psychological blueprint. Consequences without comfort. That empty house taught more than independence. It taught consequences. When parents finally came home, there were no long emotional discussions, no validation circles, no, let's talk about how that made you feel. Rules were clear. Punishment was immediate. Excuses didn't work. Psychologists call this a high-contingency environment, where actions and outcomes are tightly linked. This trained Gen X brains to think 3 steps ahead, constantly predicting consequences. That's why they often seem cautious, strategic, and emotionally guarded. Why they expect disappointment. Gen X grew up watching adults promise stability, then deliver chaos. Divorce rates exploded in the 70s and 80s. Companies demanded loyalty, then handed out pink slips. Work hard, and life will work out, they were told. Then the rules changed. Psychologists might call it defensive pessimism. Gen X calls it realism. They hope for the best, but quietly expect the rug to be pulled out, because it usually was. Why they hate oversharing. This is why you barely hear Gen X on social media. They grew up when privacy was normal. When you messed up, maybe 5 people knew. And then life moved on. No viral clips, no screenshots, no permanent digital record. So broadcasting your life to strangers doesn't feel exciting to them. It feels dangerous. Not because they don't understand technology, but because they learned early. The less people know about you, the safer you are. Irony as armor. Gen X turned irony into emotional armor. Crack a joke. Keep distance. Laugh before it hurts. They grew up under the shadow of the Cold War. Duck and cover drills. Teachers talking about nuclear war like bad weather. When adults act like everything might explode, but tell you not to worry, you learn to hold contradictions, and you learn not to get too attached. Their quiet work ethic. Here's the fascinating part. Gen X doesn't talk about work ethic. They just work. Paper routes at 5 a.m., bagging groceries, fast food jobs, calculating change in their head when machines broke. These weren't character-building activities. They were survival training. They watched their parents get destroyed by corporate restructuring, so they never believed in company loyalty. Instead, they became loyal to competence. You can't control layoffs, but you can control being the most useful person in the room. The Gen X paradox. Gen X is a paradox. They're fiercely independent and quietly collaborative. They'll never ask for help. They've been figuring things out alone since childhood. But if you need help, they'll show up. No drama, no post, no credit. Those bonds formed early, out of necessity. Authority means nothing without skill. Their relationship with authority is complicated. They respect competence, not titles earn your position, and they're loyal. Fake it, and they lose patience instantly. They watched incompetent authority figures fail repeatedly. Watergate, Iran-Contra, the mishandled AIDS crisis. So they learned to question power, not worship it. Economic scars. Gen X has been economically traumatized repeatedly. The oldest were building careers when 2008 hit. The youngest graduated straight into the dot-com crash. That's why many have multiple income streams, not because they're obsessed with hustle, but because they've learned nothing lasts. Self-reliance that borders on anxiety. Research in the Journal of Adult Development shows Gen X seeks less social support during stress, not because they don't have people, but because asking feels like failure. They're incredible in crises, but uncomfortable, depending on anyone else. How they learned differently. Before Google, information had weight. Gen X spent hours in libraries, digging through card catalogs, searching for a single answer. Psychologists call this deep encoding. Information that costs effort sticks deeper. They fixed bikes, repaired TVS, solved problems with their hands. That built a belief. With patience and effort, you can master the world. Watching their kids grow up. Now they watch their kids grow up under constant supervision. Helicopter parenting, permanent visibility. Social media documenting everything. They gave their kids the attention they never had, but worry they've made them too visible. Because in the Gen X worldview, visibility equals vulnerability. The bridge generation, Generation X, may be the last generation to truly understand boredom, solitude, thinking without instant answers. They're not better than other generations, just shaped by a rare moment in history when the old world was dying and the new one hadn't arrived yet. They're the bridge generation. And bridges don't get applause. They just hold everything together, quietly, without asking to be noticed. And maybe that's the most Gen X trait of all, not caring if anyone notices. If this hit home, subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit the join button. I genuinely appreciate it.